Imagine for a second that you're hiking through the pristine wilderness of Denali National Park up in Alaska.
Oh, yeah. It's absolutely gorgeous up there.
Right. You're surrounded by these towering peaks, taking in just the sheer beauty of public lands. But then you take like one single step to your left,
Hmm?
and suddenly you are standing on private, corporate-owned property. And the only reason that invisible line exists right there in the dirt is because, well, lawmakers, thousands of miles away, quietly traded 21,000 acres to protect one specific historic cabin.
Yeah, I mean, it is a perfect example of how the fine print of federal law quite literally shapes the ground beneath our feet.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
the broad strokes always get the headlines, but those invisible boundaries, they actually govern our daily reality.
Totally. Well, welcome to a special Congress in Context edition of our deep dive. I am so glad you're joining us today.
Glad to be here.
So our mission for this deep dive is to basically sift through a massive stack of recent federal bills, resolutions, and committee actions. We really want to understand the structural mechanics of all this recent congressional activity and how it impacts everyday Americans like you.
And just to add a quick methodology note here before we really jump in.
Oh, right. Yeah, go ahead.
So while some of these bills definitely touch on, sensitive or politically charged topics, our deep dive today is going strictly, and I mean strictly, impartially report on the mechanics.
Right, just the facts.
Exactly. Just the stated positions found in the source material. We're not taking any sides here. We aren't endorsing any viewpoints. We are just reading the blueprints, so to speak.
Which is exactly what you have to do to understand the system, right? Like, we're doing a thematic road trip today, starting with physical spaces, moving to natural resources, and then getting into social systems and oversight.
Yeah, because if you want to know how a house stands up, you don't argue about the color of the curtains. You check the foundation.
That is a great way to put it. So let's start with the land we share. It's fascinating because national news usually focuses on sweeping federal mandates. But looking at this stack of bills, it feels like a huge portion of Congress's work is essentially acting as a national zoning board.
It really is, yeah.
Yeah.
They're managing this massive, multifaceted estate.
Right. So take Chiricahua National Monument in Arizona. We have H.R. 6380 and its Senate companion, S. 3715, which elevate it to Chiricahua National Park. But why does it require a literal act of Congress to rename a local park or, allow a private event at a monument?
Well, because it changes the permanent legal obligations of the federal government. I mean, yes, elevating it to a national park is obviously great for tourism.
Yeah.
But if you look closely at the fine print, these bills legally mandate that the Interior Secretary ensure tribal access to traditional cultural sites within those specific boundaries.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, you can't just decree that at a local town hall.
Yeah.
Because the federal government holds that land in trust. Any alteration to who gets to use it and how requires a direct adjustment to the federal legal framework.
That actually makes a lot of sense. And that brings me back to the Denali example I mentioned at the start. That's S 4399, right?
Exactly. So that bill explicitly conveys over 21,000 acres of Denali National Park to Doyon Limited, which is an Alaska Native regional corporation.
Right, to protect the Geese House site.
Yes. But Congress doesn't just hand over the land and walk away. They install these mechanical legal guardrails, specifically prohibiting any unauthorized mineral development on that newly transferred land.
Right, but sometimes Congress isn't trading land. They're leasing it. I'm looking at S 2498 here, which allows the Interior Secretary to extend National Park System leases without a public bidding process. Let me push back on that for a second. If you remove public bidding, aren't you just handing a monopoly to whoever already runs the gift shop?
Well, yeah, and that is the exact debate lawmakers have on the floor. But the tool they're using here is a strict 5-year compliance requirement.
Okay, meaning what exactly?
Meaning the secretary can only skip that public bidding process if the current lessee has been completely compliant with all rules for 5 full years.
Got it.
Yeah, the idea is to create an incentive. If you run a business in a national park, you're far more likely to invest in, expensive long-term maintenance if you know your lease won't just be yanked away by someone underbidding you by a few dollars next year.
Okay, I see. It's about stability. We also see rules for local infrastructure, like H.R. 5254 and S 2767.
Right, for the Gateway Arch Park Foundation.
Yeah, setting up a framework for them to host private events with strict cost recovery and liability conditions. And then there's H.R. 6065 and S 3313, the Wintergreen Emergency Egress Act.
That one is really interesting mechanically.
It really is. It literally forces the Interior Secretary to issue a right-of-way for an emergency exit near milepost 9.6 on the Blue Ridge Parkway. Why is Congress deciding where an emergency exit goes in Virginia?
Because that specific stretch of road intersects with federal environmental protocols. The local community desperately needs an escape route for emergencies, right?
Sure, yeah.
But Congress mandates that the right-of-way can only be issued after specific triggers are met, like a full analysis of expected fire ecology behavior.
So balancing local safety with federal environmental science. I also noticed a huge volume of heritage designations. S4238 establishes the Endless Mountains National Heritage Area in Pennsylvania for 15 years.
Yeah, and there's so many mandated suitability studies, too.
Right, like S2801 for the Canterbury Shaker Village, S3194 for Monterey Bay, the Bay Area Ridge Trail in S3720, and Washington's 1753 Trail in S4538. Oh, and S2933, redesignating a West Virginia site as the Hearts of Gold Playground to honor children impacted by cancer.
Exactly, and they all require a mechanical federal process.
But the one that really stood out is S2887, adding Route 66 to the National Trails System. There is a major catch in the fine print there. It strictly prohibits the use of eminent domain, and it forbids the creation of protective buffer zones.
Yeah.
Why ban buffer zones if the whole point is to protect the trail?
Well, it's a classic legislative compromise. A buffer zone prevents commercial activity right next to a historic site. But Route 66 runs through heavily developed areas, right?
Oh, true.
So by legally forbidding those buffer zones, Congress ensures that protecting the highway doesn't accidentally halt adjacent energy development or, infringe on private property rights.
That actually perfectly transitions us into our next area. If those public lands are the surface, I want to talk about what is flowing through and beneath them, water and energy.
The essentials.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Looking at this stack of water and energy bills, it's like a complex structural engineering project. If you move one piece, you alter the pressure of the entire system. How do these mechanics reflect a shift toward proactive resource management rather than just reactive emergency responses?
Well, for decades, water policy was mostly reactive, just responding to droughts or lawsuits. But these bills show a clear shift toward building predictable financial engines.
Like S4890, the Protecting Indian Water Rights Settlements Act.
Precisely. This guarantees funding for the future. From 2026 to 2035, it legally allocates $45 million annually just for the maintenance of existing settlements and $250 million annually for new ones.
That's a massive commitment. But I'm also seeing Congress reach into highly specific local waters, like S4368 regulating the Indio Subbasin in California, S3617 detailing Central Arizona project costs for the C.C. Cragen Dam, and S3573 extending deadlines for the AMOT litigation system.
Don't forget S4417 for the Pechanga Band water settlement.
Right. But I get confused here. Why is the federal government adjusting the dials on a single dam or a specific subbasin?
Simply because water crosses borders, and the federal government has trust obligations and interstate commerce duties. You really can't separate local water from the regional supply.
That makes sense.
That's why Congress uses massive funding tools to encourage local compliance. Take S4350, which creates the Southeast New England program. It allocates $30 million a year for coastal watershed restoration. We see similar extensions with H.R. 7250 and S3635 for the Fort Peck Reservation Rural Water System.
And S4031, right, reauthorizing the Cooperative Watershed Management Program at $40 million a year, which now includes tribes with ancestral lands.
Exactly. Plus, S3732 and S3738 reauthorizing large-scale water recycling and small storage programs and authorizing $450 million for the Water Conveyance Improvement Program.
Oh, and I also saw S1257, which authorizes Infrastructure Act funds for Carry Act dams. But, all this water infrastructure requires a staggering amount of energy to operate. Which brings us to the energy bills. H.R. 7831 and S5339 are nicknamed the License to Drill Act.
Yeah, this is a really interesting bureaucratic loop. The bill extends the Interior Secretary's mandate to collect oil and gas permit fees from 2026 all the way out to 2037.
Okay, but where does that money go?
Well, crucially, it forces the transfer of those exact fees straight into the BLM Permit Processing Improvement Fund.
Wait, so the fees paid by the oil and gas companies are used to fund the exact office that processes their permits?
Yep. It's a self-funding loop to mechanically speed up authorizations. And they're doing this for green energy, too. H.R. 5631 establishes a geothermal ombudsman and task force to expedite authorizations.
Wow, okay.
We also have S4410 requiring coal lease bonus payments in 10 equal annual installments, And on the regulatory side, S4351.
Ah, yes. S4351 mandates that federal power and natural gas commissions strictly prohibit entities from participating in the market if they file false data to manipulate price reporting agencies.
Right, because if a company feeds fake supply numbers to an agency, it mechanically inflates the cost of energy for everyone downstream.
Err.
Congress is just setting a strict zero-tolerance policy there.
Right. Okay, so energy powers the grid, but social systems power our daily lives. Let's shift our focus to healthcare, education, and the social safety net.
Yeah, this is a big one.
Looking at these bills is like watching Congress try to patch the code on massive legacy software systems. When Congress attempts to patch these systems, what do the mechanics reveal about the systemic friction everyday Americans face?
I mean, the most interesting patches are the ones happening right where the citizen interacts with the market. Let's talk about S4323 regarding Medicare drug costs.
Yes, please.
This structurally requires Medicare Part D and Advantage plans to include generic drugs and biosimilars on their formularies if their wholesale cost is less than the expensive reference drug. And it mandates lower specialty tier copays.
Okay, let's break that down. It's essentially like passing a law that forces a grocery store to take the cheaper store brand cereal out from the bottom shelf and put it right at eye level, right?
That is exactly what it does, yeah. And it caps the out-of-pocket cash the patient has to hand over.
Yeah.
We also have S4332, the Medication Competition Act, forcing HHS to publish exclusivity expiration dates for biological products.
Transparency, basically.
All right. And S4336, the Restoring Rights of Medical Residents Act. This repeals an antitrust exemption for graduate medical resident matching programs to promote actual market competition.
That is huge for young doctors who have had basically zero negotiating power. Also, touching on tech, S397 aligns tech service providers with HIPAA rules. But look at how Congress handles education. Sometimes, a single definition changes everything.
Oh, you're talking about S3010, the 21st Century Dyslexia Act?
Yes, it legally redefines dyslexia as a specific phonological processing issue, distinct from general learning disabilities. That guarantees specific accommodations under the IDA. It's a massive mechanical shift for parents and schools.
It really is. Words absolutely dictate funding in Congress. We also see a massive push for transparency in higher ed. S3589 forces universities to create transparent accommodation policies and report data on disabled students.
And S2511, the College Transparency Act, which creates a privacy-protected post-secondary student data system.
Plus, S4097, ensuring that state-based education loans match federal direct PLUS interest rates before being offered in preferred lender arrangements.
Forcing the states to match the federal baseline so students don't get gouged. Now, I really want to ask you about S43334, the Blind Americans Return to Work Act.
Yeah, this is a fundamental structural change to the social safety net. Currently, if someone on disability benefits earns above a strict income threshold, their benefits are basically terminated entirely. It's a cliff.
Right.
But this bill creates a 20-year demo project where those benefits are instead reduced mechanically by just $1 for every $2 earned above that threshold.
But wait, let me stop you there. Creating a 20-year demonstration project, doesn't that just leave these workers in a state of long-term legislative limbo?
I mean, it's a fair question, but it comes out of federal budgeting. Before Congress commits to a permanent change that impacts the Treasury, they need real actuarial data. The 20-year window allows them to prove that a gradual dial actually keeps people in the workforce.
Ah, okay, so it's a testing ground. We see a similar tweak in S33333, the Emergency Savings Enhancement Act, doubling the pension-linked emergency savings limit from $2,500 to $5,000.
And S4965, capping administrative transfers to modernize the legacy tech of the Railroad Retirement Board.
Right. But Congress isn't just patching systems for citizens. They are also maintaining their own power against executive agencies, like S53 and S46, legally prohibiting the Secretary of Education from transferring the Office of Special Education over to HHS.
Yeah, and SJ's 199, a resolution voiding an HHS rule regarding the Child Care and Development Fund.
Which perfectly sets up our final section, Oversight, Justice, and Consumer Protection. If the previous sections were about building the systems, this section is about Congress acting as a referee, throwing a flag on the play.
Absolutely.
We have everything from sports streaming regulations to international war powers here. How does Congress use its authority to mandate transparency across such wildly different sectors?
Well, let's start with consumer protection. S4301, the For the Fans Act. This legally prevents league streamers from enforcing geographic blackouts and mandates free local access to live games.
As a sports fan, seeing Congress step in to prevent a blackout in my living room is kind of wild.
Right. But they are stepping into heavier consumer issues, too. S4311 amends the FTC Act to allow the FTC to seek restitution, contract rescission, and disgorgement of unjust enrichment with a strict 10-year statute of limitations.
Stop right there. Disgorgement of unjust enrichment sounds incredibly dramatic. What does that mechanically mean for a consumer who got ripped off?
It means the scammer doesn't just pay a standard fine. Disgorgement means the government legally forces the company to cough up every single penny of profit they made from the scam. They are stripped of the enrichment entirely.
Wow, okay, that is a powerful lever. Oh, and I also noticed SJ Reese 203, which invalidates an OCC rule regarding state interest on escrow laws.
Yeah, another check on agency rulemaking.
Moving to criminal justice and financial oversight, we have S4338, the Pedophile Financial Accountability Act. What is the mechanism here?
This bill directs FinCEN to investigate financial institutions for Bank Secrecy Act violations related to Jeffrey Epstein. Specifically, it focuses on delayed suspicious activity reports on large cash wires.
Because banks are legally required to flag massive, unexplained movements of money to prevent money laundering, right? Congress wants to know why those flags weren't raised mechanically faster.
Exactly. It's a strict audit of the financial reporting system. In law enforcement tech, S4309 establishes a pilot program to test U.S.-manufactured non-lethal de-escalation drones, specifically for indoor active shooter events.
Which brings us to firearms regulation. S4339, the Virginia Plan to Reduce Gun Violence Act. It strictly limits unlicensed individuals to one handgun purchase per 30 days, and it structurally defines assault weapons as centerfire rifles or pistols with magazines over 15 rounds.
And it bans ghost guns.
Right, but the way it bans them is interesting. It defines them as firearms undetectable by airport X-ray machines. Why use airport X-rays as the legal standard?
Because it completely removes the subjective argument over what constitutes a firearm part. Instead of lawyers arguing over pieces of plastic, Congress is applying an objective, already existing federal safety standard. If the item passes through a TSA scanner unseen, it is a banned ghost gun.
It's a brilliantly simple legal test. Finally, we have to look at checks on executive and foreign policy. SJRE's 181 asserts that Operation Epic Fury was unauthorized.
Yes, and it legally directs the removal of U.S. armed forces from hostilities with Iran absent a formal declaration of war. It does include exceptions for intelligence gathering and defending Israel, but it is a direct reassertion of congressional war powers.
And on the diplomatic front, SRA's 017 alters Senate procedure itself, allowing the chamber to process 86 executive and diplomatic nominations in block, meaning all at once, for mechanical efficiency.
Right. Whether it's preventing a sports blackout, investigating money laundering, or reining in presidential war powers, these bills represent the mechanical checks and balances designed to protect the individual citizen.
Which brings us to the end of our deep dive today, and this is where we connect all this machinery right back to you. First, we want to express our deepest gratitude to you for tuning in to the special Congress in Context edition.
We really appreciate it.
If you value this kind of objective, ad-free civic education, you can help keep this resource sustainable by using the Buy Me a Coffee link located right down in the episode description.
And remember, you don't have to just take our word for what is in these bills. You can find and read the full text of every single piece of legislation we discussed today.
Absolutely. Just go to congress.gov and search the exact bill numbers we mentioned today. You can use that platform to track upcoming committee hearings, see how your specific representatives voted, and find their direct contact information. Participating in democracy is about so much more than just showing up on election day, you know? It's about submitting public comments on agency rules or attending local heritage planning meetings.
Yeah, we've spent this whole time looking at how Congress writes the fine print. But here is something to mull over as we wrap up. When we look at this massive stack of paper, it's so easy to focus only on the polarizing headlines.
Right, the stuff on cable news.
Exactly. While cable news argues over the broader culture wars, the actual architecture of your daily life is being quietly constructed by the mechanical details we discussed today. From the exact price cap on your emergency savings account to the geographical boundaries of your local hiking trail, the true power of government lies not in the speeches, but in the fine print. So, the next time you hear a political slogan, ask yourself, what does the fine print actually say?
That is a phenomenal question to leave you with. Thanks for diving deep with us today.